Yesterday, a federal judge struck down Arkansas's first-in-the-nation ban on gender-affirming care for children. He said it was unconstitutional. It's the first ruling to overturn the prohibition on gender-affirming care for minors, which is a growing movement in many states to protect children. It's a dark place for parents knowing that our children's gender and their affirmation has now become a political battle. We're going to talk about that next on the Celebrate Kids podcast in our daily segment, Facing the Dark.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So Dr. Kathy, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie declared his candidacy for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. He recently said that he thinks transgender procedures on minors, including hormone blockers, should be allowed as long as a parent consents. A number of states have passed laws restricting access to transgender procedures for minors as the country has seen a sharp uptick in the number of youths who question their gender identity. Now, in total, 33 states have at least a pending bill addressing the topic. At the press conference, former Governor Christie said, quote, "What I believe we should be focused on, most importantly in these issues, is making sure there's parental involvement along every step of the way." He went on to say, "I don't think that the government should ever be stepping into the place of parents to helping to move their children through a process where those children are confused or concerned about their gender. And I just would say that the parents are the people who are allowed to be in the best position to make these judgments. And so what I'd like to make sure each state does is require that parents be involved in these decisions," end quote. So, Dr. Kathy, I think this is really interesting, how former Governor Christie kind of frames the discussion. What would you say in response to his comments?
Well, I think he's wrong. To be really clear, parental authority is huge. You know, one of the reasons a lot of us were upset about COVID policies is that parents were denied the power to make decisions for their children. So I am a fan of parental authority. Certainly that's the God-given best scenario. However, we know that not all parents can be trusted with this issue. I have mixed feelings about government authority here. You know, in a lot of ways, I wish the government would stay out of the family business. And I mean that for, you know, Snapchat and TikTok and COVID policies and everything else. But there are times when the medical professionals are saying now, parents are being foolhardy and foolish here, and it's really dangerous. We also know that in some recent research, 70% of children and preteens who thought they wanted to transition to a different gender changed their mind by the time they were 18. And so if parents would have just listened to the whining, complaining behavior and started hormone blockers and all of that, those children would have been at great risk. So if we would patiently wait and embrace our kids for who they are, I think we'd have less of a mess.
So, Dr. Kathy, can you explain to me a little bit, what's the role that development plays in this? So I think that there's kind of just natural questioning that kids end up doing in general as they develop. How much of this is just kind of natural child development that needs to be given some space to kind of work out rather than us making a hard decision? And how much of this do you think is actually a little bit of, like, kind of Governor Christie is saying, that much of the government is kind of stepping in and being involved in these discussions or decisions, and now this part of what might have been normal child development is actually becoming something that public policymakers are getting involved in?
Yeah, it really is a confusing issue. You know, we know from research that's been done for years that a man's brain is not finished until he's 25 and a woman's brain until about age 23. We know the hormones kick in and there's growth spurts and there's, you know, puberty and pre-puberty. There's just things that happen that confuse children's minds and thoughts and beliefs and feelings. And we know feelings lie. We can't just go with that. We know that there are different definitions or different characteristics of men and women. You know, I have a low voice. I can be called sir, but I'm clearly not a guy. And I know of many men who are creative and artistic and playful and spontaneous, and they love to wear bright colors. And they're sometimes told, "Oh, you're so gay." And there's just so much lie in culture about what makes a man and what makes a woman a woman. Tomboys who are told, oh, you might as well be just a boy. No, we've always had tomboys. We've always had girls who like to climb trees and kick soccer balls or whatever it might be. So these are developmental things. In the old days, we didn't wake up and go, oh, I'm a woman today. Like it just wasn't thought of. It wasn't an issue. And now, the gay and lesbian lobby is loud and financially well off, and they've made it messy. And, we have, pastors and denominations that have said, oh, those Bible verses are no longer relevant. And they'll even say that, we weren't created in God's image. I mean, there's so many lies out there. And so if we could let development happen, most children grow out of their state of anxiety. I was 6, I didn't want to be tall anymore. What were my parents going to do? Put me in a cage so that I wouldn't be embarrassed by being too tall among my peers, or cut off 6 inches between my, knee and my ankle? No, they enrolled me in tap dance class where I got to be the center of the back row, a position of high honor that only the tallest girl was allowed to have. And all of a sudden I wasn't too tall. As a little girl said to me once, I'm cool tall, and that's a true story. I was, body dysphoric for a while, but I had a parent who was willing to hear my heart cry and willing to walk with me, solve a mental issue. We're trying to solve a mental issue with physical change, and that's going to get us in trouble every time.
Dr. Kathy, to close, I'd like to have you kind of explain to me what we're kind of calling gender-affirming care like hormone treatments and surgeries that are given to minors to help them kind of align their body with the gender that they want to profess. What does that kind of care do to a child's identity? And why should parents and community members kind of step in to halt these kinds of thinking or processes or ideas from coming into our communities?
Yeah, first of all, as I've said, gender dysphoria, thinking that you're a different gender than you were born to be, is a mental health issue. And it's not going to be solved by cutting off a body part or building a fake body part. And we know that. We know that from detransitioners who are changing. We know that the suicide rate is way higher 8 years after transitioning than it ever was before they considered changing their gender. Again, the media does not want people to know that, but there is data to suggest that. So it's just extremely difficult. Hormones that would, block the lower voice for guys, hormone changes that would stop a woman's period. There are women who bind themselves. I've been questioned at events about, is it okay if I bind myself? So a preteen or a teen girl who doesn't like the size of her breasts and wants to pretend to be male will take binding material and every day just bind her, like duct tape, if you will. It's not, but duct tape, if you will. So she has a flatter chest. And now who is she? Like they live in this space of, who am I today? And we know identity controls behavior. And we know if you don't know who you are, decision-making becomes extremely messy. So they're making foolish decisions. They're often allowed to, and it just grieves me. And you know what? There is no guarantee of happiness. No guarantee that at the end of these medical procedures, they will be feeling okay about themselves. Because guess what? You're still a woman. Your DNA and your everything is female. So it's messy. Oh, it's just messy. It makes me so sad.
In times like this, it just feels like there's so much that's going on around us, that there's a battle around every corner. It almost feels like we need to take refuge. And thankfully, we have many people inside of Scripture who have been in these places before, where it feels like the world is falling around them and they don't know where to turn to next. And that's something that the psalmist, that David, talks about in Psalm 91 when he writes, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 by your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked, because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge. No evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. The approach that David has in the Psalms to challenges when the world feels like it's falling around him, when he has all of the promises of being the king of Israel and Saul is coming after him, and David hides in the crags of the rock and is reminded in the darkest times of his life that God is his fortress and that God is his refuge. And in times like this, when we feel like many politicians or many other people in the world are trying to come in and attack or surround us and the way that we think and the beliefs that we hold tightly to, it's important to remind ourselves that many people have been here before and many people have trusted in the Lord in these times, and it hasn't always gone smoothly, but it has always gone well for those who trust in the Lord, who make the Lord their dwelling place. And in these times, I think where Dr. Kathy is encouraging us, and I know where Scripture is encouraging us, is to rest in the fortress and the refuge of Jesus Christ. And doing that will be a bright light for this dark cultural moment. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast and our daily segment, Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.